everyone, and welcome to ABC Interactive English. I'm Mike.
And I am Rainbow.
And you know what, Rainbow?
What?
There are bugs in our world.
There's so many.
I know. We're talking, of course, about insects. Another way of saying insects is bugs. And actually, bugs is good because you can also use bugs to talk about spiders and other things that might not actually be insects. But there are a lot of insects in our world, and probably more insects in Taiwan than in other parts of the world.
I think so.
It's warm all the time.
Tropical.
Yeah.
Oh, I have a bug story.
Uh-oh, everyone has a bug story. Okay, let me hear yours.
Okay, I have a bug story about...
Is it gross? Is it going to make me go, aye?
Maybe. Have you ever eaten a bug?
It was cooked for me.
Yes.
Yeah, sure. I've had bug on the menu.
Fried bugs
sure.
in
Had those.
Thailand.
Ooh, not those.
Fried tarantula in Cambodia.
Those are big.
Those are big.
Okay. I've only had bees and ants, I think. They're you know.
Ants. Ants are nice.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever had a bee before.
I used to eat chocolate-covered bees when I was a kid. My parents tell me that, and my relatives too. I think they're joking.
Is it a real bee?
I don't know. They tell me, oh, when you were 4 years old, you loved chocolate and I'm like, really? And they go, oh yeah, but I think everyone is just joking. I think they're tricking me. But apparently that's true. But here in Taiwan, I went to a restaurant up in the mountains, and yeah, there I had some bees and some ants.
I want to do that. That sounds cool.
It was quite good. I mean, they're all fried. There's garlic, some egg. I forget what else was in there. It was fine.
A lot of protein.
Just don't think about it too much. But we're going to be thinking about bugs for the next 3 days, actually, and having some pretty interesting stories and also getting some good information about all of the different, well, a few of the different bugs in our world.
Several.
Let's check out part A. Simon and Heidi are at a pond.
Look at all these dragonflies. We can't see them at this time back home.
Really? What bugs can you see then?
We can see ants, bees, and locusts. They are a kind of grasshopper.
All right, so yes, bugs in our world, or insects all around us. Let's find out what's going on. We're going to have 3 dialogues over the next 3 days. So let's check out today. Part A, it says Simon and Heidi are at a pond. Oh, that's a good place to find lots of insects. By a pond, yeah.
And it's also a place to find ducks.
Right. Ducks eat insects, don't they?
Maybe.
Yeah, I think they would.
Maybe they're also friends. Okay, a pond is a body of water that's not too big, such as an ocean. It's not like a lake, it's not like a river, but a pond is a small body of water that could be in a place such as a park. So it's usually like a round area, and there are swans or there are ducks there, and they're just floating by. It's a very beautiful place, and it's usually just very, very peaceful and calm, and a place for people to walk. And is it true that many ponds, or most ponds, maybe are man-made nowadays?
Well, you could have a man-made pond in a beautiful garden, but of course they're natural. They could be a part of a wetland area, something like that. And yes, we'll have fish in the pond, and of course frogs and other animals live around it. And all of those animals, frogs, fish especially, they like to eat insects.
Yes.
So it's also a good place to find insects. And that's what our friends Simon and Heidi seem to be doing. They're at the pond, and as we begin, Simon says, look at all these dragonflies. Ooh, yeah, you do often see dragonflies by ponds. I think they like water too. Those, of course, are very interesting insects. We'll get to that in a second. He says, we can see them at this time back home. Oh, so interesting. Simon obviously is from a different part of the world. He's saying back home where he's from, you couldn't see dragonflies by a pond. Well, we are getting to the end of the year.
Yeah.
So if you're from a colder place, like, you know, the States, US, Canada, yeah, maybe there won't be any dragonflies. But here in Taiwan, it's still warm, so you could probably see dragonflies even at the end of the year. And this surprises Heidi, right?
Yeah, Heidi says, really? What bugs can you see then? So I think maybe even the bugs are different depending on where you live. And there's especially like so many different types here that you maybe wouldn't be able to see in the States or in North America.
Very good point. Well, where Simon comes from, he says, we can see ants, bees, and locusts.
Interesting.
Interesting, that is okay. So locusts, and then he goes on to explain they, meaning the locusts from that list there, they are a kind of grasshopper, right? So we've mentioned already 4 or 5 different types of insects. We started with dragonflies. Those are kind of big, a little bit long.
They have wings.
They have those wings, and they can kind of hang in the air and fly sideways and backwards. They're very, very interesting. But you don't often see them in a city. You might see them in a park, but not usually in your home.
They're always by the water.
That. They're often by water. Ants, though, they are very common. You can find those all over the place, even inside your home. Ants, of course, are famous for working hard, right? Working together, and you might see ants in your kitchen. They often follow a line to the food and then bring it back.
They carry it on their backs.
Bring it back. I think they carry it in their mouths, but bring it back to the ant hill, where millions and millions of ants will live. And that brings us to the next insect we mentioned.
Oh, we have bees. Okay, so bees are black and they're striped, black and yellow. They have wings and their job is to make honey. And they also go to flower and flower and flower, and they have this action of like spreading their seed everywhere. You can say that. And then we would probably just know about them from the honey that they make that we can eat. And also, if a bee stings you, it's gonna hurt a lot. So you wanna treat that before it gets really bad or infected. But we can see bees, I would say closer to nature, but occasionally we'd see like a bee or two by a park, and then everybody runs away from the bee then.
You might be afraid of bees. Some people are allergic to bees. They can actually get really sick and might have to go to a hospital if they're stung. That's what we would call it, when the bee sticks that painful thing in your skin. It's a little different from mosquitoes, right? Mosquitoes bite you. Bees and wasps and other insects, we say they sting you because it hurts. They're doing it in a different way. And of course, bees are also important for growing fruit and flowers and stuff like that. We love bees. They're very important in nature, and a lot of the food we eat is grown because of the hard work of all the bees. Next, we move on to locusts. Well, locusts and grasshoppers, these are quite similar animals. They're quite small. They're famous for having those big back legs that help them jump really far. They can rub the legs together to make a very sort of interesting sound that we often hear in the summertime. And locusts are also well known for traveling in huge clouds, and they can descend on a farmer's field and eat all the green plants, all the leaves off a tree in a few hours, sometimes in East Africa, especially in Kenya or Somalia, Ethiopia. Sometimes they have huge clouds of locusts that can really destroy all of the farmers' fields. So locusts can be a blessing, but they can also be a big problem for people. And they're similar to the next one on the list.
Yeah, so they're part of the grasshopper family, and usually when we think of grasshopper, we think of this big, long insect that kind of looks like a really long, thin leaf, and they could even hide inside the leaf, but when they stand up, they have these, like, it kind of looks like their hands, and then they kind of look like they can attack you. I know in martial arts, there's like a grasshopper sort of like move. But anyway, they're very green. They're also known to fly in like huge clumps of grasshoppers, and these are insects that we can also find very commonly in Taiwan.
All right, and since we're talking about insects, all of these insects, from the dragonflies to the grasshoppers, remember insects are also known for having 3 body parts and 6 legs. That's why we don't include spiders in insects, for example. So these are all insects we're talking about. Let's take a break, and we'll be back with more bugs.
Are they bigger or smaller than crickets?
They are bigger, and they can fly.
Hey, do you have fireflies and cicadas in your home country?
Sure, we see them in the summer, but we only see cicadas once every 13 years.
Wow, that's so different. We see cicadas here every year.
We are back. We're still down by the pond, and Heidi and Simon are talking about insects.
Yeah, Heidi wants to ask Simon a lot of questions because maybe she's not so familiar with locusts as they were talking about before. So Heidi says, are they bigger or smaller than crickets? Oh, yeah, Heidi knows about crickets, but not all lotus.
That's very interesting because crickets, grasshoppers, and locusts are really very similar in a lot of ways. But as Simon says, they, meaning locusts, they are bigger and they can fly. All right, so locusts would probably be the bigger ones. Grasshoppers are kind of in the middle. They're kind of green, right? And locusts and crickets can be more in the brown, light brown kind of shade.
They're like fatter, rounder.
Crickets are a little bit smaller too. And people might also know crickets because you can also use them for like fishing bait, or if you have a pet snake or a pet lizard. I know sometimes people feed crickets to their pet frogs and animals like that.
Like a snack.
So you might actually go to the pet store and buy some crickets for your favorite pet frog. Anyways, these are all different types of insects, and we would kind of include crickets, locusts, and everything in the grasshopper family. Now, locusts, though, he mentioned, are different because they can fly.
Yeah, okay, so fly, that's it. So when you fly, you use your wings and you leave the ground. So when we usually talk about flying, we'd say birds can fly, except chickens cannot fly, turkeys cannot fly, but ostriches probably cannot fly or fly only a little bit. But birds fly very high in the sky, especially eagles, who are known as one of the most high-flying birds, and they soar throughout. And these little flies with their wings, they can also fly. Now, just to let you know, fly is also a type of insect too. The fly can fly, and we would find them around food, and mosquitoes, they're a type of fly, and these are insects that we normally kill because we don't want them stinging us, we don't want them getting into our food, we don't really enjoy them around our presence usually. They can go back to nature, and that's a good place, but those flies can fly. Okay, so let's get back to Heidi. Heidi says, hey, do you have fireflies and cicadas in your home country? So we're introducing two different types of insects. One is called fireflies. They are a type of fly and they can fly. And we also have cicadas. That's
right. Fireflies, of course, are very small but famous for having those bodies that glow. And we can often see them in the mountains of Taiwan in the spring, I think, in the early summer. Very cute and very small.
Very cute.
Cicadas, though, are also insects, but quite different from fireflies.
They also appear in the summer and they sing very loudly. So my house is by the mountains and there's so many different cicadas. I remember it was in May when they started to scream really loudly. They travel in big groups and they are these brown insects, and you usually can't see them because they're hiding in the trees or in the mountains, but those are their homes and they like to get together and they sing, but it sounds more like they're screaming.
Yeah, it's a very interesting noise. Once you hear the sound of a cicada, you will always be able to recognize it. It always reminds me of summer holidays when I was a kid. You'd see them, but cicadas, they are quite big sometimes and kind of ugly.
Kind of scary.
I had one on my leg once when I was painting my garage at home during one summer, and I was not happy to see that cicada. But they're very interesting insects, really. If you can stay away from them in real life, but if you can watch something on, a nature program on TV. So Simon says, sure, yes, they have lightning bugs and cicadas where he's from. And talking about cicadas, Simon then goes on to say, we see them in the summer, but we only see cicadas once every 13 years.
Wow.
It's really interesting.
That's a long time.
They lay their eggs, they live underground for 12 years, in some places more like 15 years.
And they come
out for 1 year of party, and then that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Their whole life is over.
So Heidi's impressed. Wow, that's so different. We see cicadas here every year. Yeah, that's my memory too.
Okay. I think there are, of course, different cicadas in different parts of the world. Yeah,
cool.
So there you go. Very interesting insects.
Interesting.
I like to watch them on TV. I don't like them near my face and near my food. But I will always agree that they are very interesting animals. And so we're going to learn more about them tomorrow. So come back to join us for that. And until then, bye-bye.
Bye. Oh, what's that? Is it a fly?
Simon and Heidi are at a pond.
Look at all these dragonflies. We can't see them at this time back home.
Really? What bugs can you see then?
We can see ants, bees, and locusts. They are a kind of grasshopper.
Are they bigger or smaller than crickets?
They are bigger, and they can fly.
Hey, do you have fireflies and cicadas in your home country?
Sure, we see them in the summer, but we only see cicadas once every 13 years.
Wow, that's so different. We see cicadas here every year.
Hi, I'm Tina. 我们来看一下这一课的重点单字。第一个 pond， 名词，池塘。Are there any fish in the pond？ 这个池塘里有鱼吗？下一个单字 ant， 名词，蚂蚁。Ants don't have ears， 蚂蚁没有耳朵。下一个单字 bee， 名词，蜜蜂。There's a swarm of bees flying in the garden. 花园里有一群蜜蜂飞来飞去。在句子里面，这个 swarm 它的意思是名词，一大群的昆虫，所以我们可以说一大群蜜蜂 a swarm of bees. A swarm of ants 就是一大群蚂蚁咯。下一个单字 fly， 动词，飞，它的三态是 fly, flew, flown. Several eagles flew across the sky. 几只老鹰飞过天空。接着我们来看重点文法。第一个 back home， 在家乡。Home 在这里指的是故乡、家乡。我们来看看这个例句 Linda has a fiancé back home. Linda 在家乡有个未婚夫。Fiancé 在这里指的是未婚夫。下一个文法 A is 形容词比较级加上 than B，A 比 B 更怎么样？这里是形容词比较级的句型。我们来看看这个例句 A baseball is smaller than a football. 棒球比足球小。下一个文法 Once every 13 years， 每13年一次。Once 是副词，一次一回。那么 every 的意思就是每隔多少时间的。我们来看看这个句子 I visit my grandmother in Taitung once every 3 months. 我每3个月去台东看一次我奶奶。以上就是这一课的重点单字跟文法，我们下一课再见喽，拜拜。
Hi everyone, I'm Stephen.
And I'm Jamie.
We're going to play a game called Word Drop, where each of us has 3 words or phrases on these cards, and we're going to work them into a conversation as casually as possible. But we haven't looked at them yet, so that is the challenge. All right, so I will go first.
Okay.
So it's been a while now since I have been able to go back to the States to visit my family because of the whole pandemic issue. But you know, it's one of those things like now that the borders are slowly starting to open up, I do feel like it's kind of, it gives me anxiety about, you know, going onto an airplane and, you know, because you're worried about the quarantine or other people being sick. But, you know, eventually I'm going to have to just muster up some courage and fly back to the States.
Yeah, I think, you know, being able to muster up courage and face your fears, that's really good, you know? Like, some people are actually afraid of flying even without COVID or any type of pandemic, right? They just are afraid of planes or being in the air. Me personally, I'm not afraid of that. I am usually afraid of more bugs. Those are kind of things I'm afraid of. Like cockroaches are pretty disgusting. And yeah, spiders are kind of scary. Mosquitoes are kind of scary. And also, sometimes ants can be scary. Like, yeah, an ant.
So you probably don't really like going to, like, you know, the park or anywhere outside because there are a lot of bugs. Actually, there are a lot of bugs everywhere. Like, you know, like, actually they say, like, every night you probably eat, like, 2 or 3 bugs without knowing it.
Yeah.
So anyway, back to being outside, I really think you should probably avoid places that have a lot of insects, such as ponds. Just really avoid those.
Yeah, I guess I should. Stay away. Well, I think it's because it's like the sitting water, right?
Right.
And there's a lot of mosquitoes hatch their eggs or something in it. I could be wrong, but I think
No,
that's
they do.
right. Yeah,
A lot.
there's like mosquitoes and But mosquitoes aren't so bad, even though if they do bite you, which is annoying, but at least it just itches. Some bugs, they bite you and it really like swells up, or you could even die, right? Like spiders or even bees.
That's right.
Bee stings.
Bee stings are terrible. They hurt like a lot. But you did mention one of my least favorite bugs, not even bugs, spiders. You mentioned spiders. Spiders are the worst. I know they help us and they eat a lot of other insects, but I think they're terrifying. And actually they do say once every month you do swallow a spider when you're sleeping because your mouth is open and they're like, oh, what's that? And they go inside your mouth and you eat it. So once every month.
That's great. Yeah. so much protein. Well, I think the nice thing though about being from somewhere cold, which is where I'm from, is that there's not so many bugs there. I think there are not very many bugs back home.
That's
for
good.
me. Yeah.
So where do you live? Mars?
No.
Where do you
Close.
See you next time.